Hello everyone. Welcome to the second session of our video course, How to Break Free of the Stress of Debt. And today we will be discussing the psychology of excessive spending. We think of money as numbers, values, and amounts. But when it comes down to it, when we actually use money, we engage our hearts more than our heads. The most important emotions in relation to money are fear, guilt, shame, and envy. And it's worth spending some effort to become aware of the emotions that are especially tied to money, because without awareness, they will tend to override rational thinking and lead to wrong actions. And we could spend hours discussing psychology and money. Today, however, the topic is psychology of excessive spending. Many of us would agree that we enjoy spending money on things that brings us pleasure. Even though our individual preferences may differ, the reasoning behind the spending remains more or less the same. And there is nothing wrong with spending money, and this is actually how the economy runs. One's spending is another's income. But it becomes a serious issue when we spend money that we don't have or overspend excessively. So why we spend? A fundamental reason we enjoy spending money is that it brings us a feeling of being in control. According to a study in the Journal of Consumer Psychology, consumers typically shop while being sad, an emotion strongly linked to feelings of lack of control. Researchers found that making purchases not only reduces feeling of sadness, but also restores a sense of personal control. We also know these types of purchases as a retail therapy. Compulsive shopping is an attempt to fill an emotional void, lack of control, or lack of self-esteem. Often a negative mood triggers an urge to shop. A study published in Psychology and Marketing indicates that a bad mood can convince us we are deserving of retail therapy to help cheer us up. Moreover, individuals in bad mood are more likely to spend money on material items rather than experience, and this is due to instant gratification, allowing us to feel better faster. However, the decrease in negative emotions is temporary, and it is replaced by the increase of anxiety and guilt. Another reason we spend money pertains to our need to compare financial success to those of our peers, otherwise known as keeping up with Joneses. This becomes an issue when we spend money we don't have. And here are the 5 psychological principles that could be behind our bad spending decisions. The first one is present bias. Present bias occurs when individuals place extra weight on more immediate gratification than on those in the future. For example, my future self may want to complete that kitchen renovation, but my present self wants to go on vacation. The more we disregard the long-term interest in favor of immediate gratification, the more likely that we will have the overspending problems. The second one is scarcity principle. The scarcity principle is an economic theory that explains the relationship between the supply and demand. When applied to the field of psychology, the scarcity principle basically states that the less available something is, the more desired it becomes. People tend to place higher value on items that are scarce, while placing a lower value on items that are easily accessible and available. So when it comes to making decisions, you might feel more pressure to buy something because you think it could become unavailable soon. Marketers are also well aware of this tendency and use it often to advertise and sell products and services. But scarcity principle doesn't just drive people to buy things they normally wouldn't. It also makes people more likely to make mistakes and bad decisions. Another psychological principle that causes people to overspend is known as anchoring. Anchoring is a term used in psychology to describe a common human tendency to rely too heavily on one piece of information when making decisions. Usually, once the anchor is set, there is a bias toward the value. For example, say you went out with a friend and passing by a store, you see a pair of shoes on sale for $65. The initial price is marked $150. It's likely that you'll set your attention on the initial price of $150, the anchor, and therefore consider the new price of $65 as a great deal. However, the original price might have been inflated, or you might not need another pair of shoes to start with. Anchoring often leads to overspending. The fourth principle is social facilitation. Social facilitation can be defined as an improvement in performance produced by the mere presence of another. Example, we tend to perform better when being in competition with someone else. But in terms of spending, social facilitation might actually work against you. Social facilitation affects on shopping behavior where shoppers accompanied by others spend more times in stores and purchase more compared to lone shoppers. Next time you go shopping with a friend, please be conscious of this bias and, most importantly, be reasonable in your judgment. The fifth principle is hard cash versus credit. It explains why people have an easier time spending money on credit card as opposed to spending real money. Paying with cash is more painful than paying with credit cards. The main psychological force of credit cards is that they separate the pleasure of buying from the pain of paying. So if you want to get your spending in control, stop using your credit cards. To conclude this session, I strongly recommend the book written by Dan Ariely and Jeff Chrysler, Dollars and Cents, How We Misthink Money and How to Spend Smarter. In this book, the authors explain how our irrational behavior often interferes with our best intentions when it comes to managing our finances. They take us deep inside our minds to explore the hidden motivations that are secretly driving our choices about money and teaches us how to improve our money habits. And that is it for this session. In the third video, we will dive right in actions, analyzing your financial situation and building a debt repayment plan that suits you best. See you then.